Good afternoon, everyone. Want to thank you all and welcome you all for joining us again today for our third Lunch and Learn session with It's COLA. My name is Ryan Coleman, and I'm the Director of Economic Development for the City of Columbia, South Carolina. And I'm here on behalf of It's COLA, the Insurance Technology and Services cluster of the region, to welcome you to our third Lunch and Learn on talent, attraction, and retention. It's COLA is an organization that is comprised of insurance-related businesses here in the Columbia area, working together to promote the growth and development of our local companies, to recruit, retain, and develop top industry talent and leadership, and to make Columbia, South Carolina, a nationwide destination for the insurance industry. And we're incredibly excited to have you join us today on Thursday. With that being said, it's my privilege to turn the program over to our moderator and one of the esteemed members of our talent committee, Ms. Pelham Spong, Senior Solution Consultant at Phineas. Pelham?
Thank you, Ryan, and good afternoon, everyone. I am excited and honored to introduce our two panelists. As Ryan mentioned, I'm a senior solution consultant at Phineas. I've got over 7 years experience in insurance technology. I was part of what's formerly known as Limelight Health, a San Francisco startup that was acquired by Phineas about this time last year. I'm a Columbia native. I'm actually in Charleston, though, after a move back from Texas. Just happy to be back in my home state of South Carolina. All right, so I'm going to start off with an introduction to Stephanie Pfeiffer. She has more than 15 years experience in HR and a strong focus on human capital needs. She's got extensive experience in offering a strategic consultative approach to corporate talent management. And as the Director of Talent Acquisition at Blue Cross Blue Shield of South Carolina, she leads the corporate recruiting, talent operations, and pre-employment assessment teams, which are responsible for attracting top talent for Blue Cross across the US. Stephanie discovered her passion for talent in 2005 when she made the leap from a career in the legal field and took on the challenge of working for one of New Jersey's fastest growing technology startup companies. Her mentors included best-in-class talent acquisition and HR professionals who taught her how to hunt for talent in a competitive market and how to understand business needs. She has also worked for an agency recruiter and HR business partner. She holds a bachelor's degree in paralegal studies, and she is certified as a strategic HR business partner and professional HR practitioner. Next, I'm going to introduce Sandra Smith-Edwards. Sandra is a senior global human resource professional. She's got over 20 years of progressive HR experience working in insurance, telecommunication, consulting, and retail organizations. She is currently the HR business partner for Sapiens. Most of Sandra's career, she's had the opportunity to translate her experience to bring value to learning and development, talent management, coaching, employee engagement, diversity and inclusion, and organization development. As the owner of here we have New Jersey again, the New Jersey Certified Minority Women Business, she provided training and development and job placement to over 700 unemployed and underemployed community residents. Her work during the 7 years that she was an owner included career coaching, job preparation, as well as diversity and inclusion. Her track record included maintaining a 90% job placement and retention rate for the New Jersey workforce. She's got a bachelor's degree in finance and economics, a master's degree in human resources, and a doctor of management certificate in organization development. So welcome to you both, and thanks for joining us today. I'm going to start off. I've got a couple of questions for the both of you, and I think Stephanie, I'll tag you first. We've just heard that you're both experienced professionals who've worked in the talent space. What are some of the successful strategies or techniques that you've discovered in helping identify and retain top tier talent? So what's your secret sauce? I guess we'll go for that.
Sure, and thank you for the opportunity. I'm glad to be here today. I don't know that I would call it secret sauce. There really are a few basic foundational things that I've learned along the way that have made me successful, which I always try to coach and groom talent acquisition staff on, which is you have to know your business, right? So you have to know your business, whether it's the growth, the challenges, the goals, what the needs are, both current and future state. But networking and relationships are key. So that's both on the internal side of things within your business, but also with candidates. Networking, whether you have a job open currently or not, you should always be out there exploring the talent field if you're in this profession. I mean, it's critical. You never know who you're going to meet. You never know what their passions might end up being and how that might align with your business needs. But also, one of the things that's worked, I think, well for me is you have to do everything you can to understand your competitor landscape. So what's going on out there currently? Who are your current competitors? What's coming up on the horizon? So making sure that you have partnerships within your region or maybe across the nation, depending on what you need to recruit for, really know what's coming, where the bubbles might be, understanding graduation degrees, right? So if you know that there is a certain skill set that's going to be hot and heavy over the next 5 years, you need to understand where you're going to find that talent, if it's coming out of the schools, if it already exists. Those are just some of the things. And again, kind of back to the basics, it's networking and relationships, knowing your business, and then knowing the competitive landscape in which you are up against especially when right now, you have a talent supply and demand imbalance, I will say. You have to get that much more creative and put yourself out there. So those would be the things that I would share today on that question.
Wonderful. Thank you. Sandra?
So I'm just going to just emphasize everything that Stephanie said is absolutely on point. I'm going to emphasize on the business part, the business acumen part. It's really important. 3 things I think when you're looking getting talent is the value information, which I call core value information, work information, and then employee experience information. So looking for organization, it's easy when you look for organization that their core values are aligned with your core values. And so it's really important to sort of understand that. And then the talent will just sort of bubble up from there. Of course, work information as far as how does your work align with the organization, and then the experience as well. But I really want to focus on the business acumen part to make sure that, when you're looking for, and like she said, you got to network, you got to do all that, but look at that organization as well and make sure that their core values is in true alignment with your core values. Then it's easy to sort of get talent and retain talent.
Mm-hmm. So, Stephanie, you mentioned graduating and degrees, what was out there. Kind of building on that for both of you guys, what are some of the key skills and attributes that you're looking for in young professionals when you are hiring for some of these entry level or early level positions? Have you noticed any patterns on what might make a young professional successful in your organization or specifically in the insurance industry? And Sandra, I'll go first with you this time.
Okay, so everything is digital, that's sort of the current trend as far as skill set. So I'll talk about from the hard skills, really it's being data centric and digital, but then there's this soft for entry level, there's this what people call soft skills, but actually what I call very critical skills. And in light of what's happening with the pandemic and how the young, for all of us, these skills, the resilience, to have the resilience component of the skill set, that's what I look for, to see if they have emotional intelligence, impulse control, critical thinking skill, empathy, optimism. I mean, just to have those critical skill set is really important, along with having the the technical skills for example, in claims professionals, for example, predictive analytics, climate change, and just having those artificial intelligence, having those sort of hard skills is also a good thing to have underneath your belt. But again, I really look for those critical skill sets, which is resilience.
Fabulous. I like the critical versus soft skill. That's a good rewording. I like that. Yeah. Stephanie, what about you?
Sure. So I think, well, I agree with everything Sandra has said. It's really an interesting dynamic in terms of speaking with, students and trying to figure out who's going to be most engaged and who's the right fit, and vice versa, because Sandra did mention that before as well. Is it a good fit for them? Is your company a good fit for them? And you have to kind of be prepared to make that alignment and also make sure you're explaining those corporate core values along the way, because one of the worst things that can happen is you spend all this time and energy courting these students to join your organization, and then you invest in them and you train them only to find out that it's not a good fit for them or for you for that matter. So that's really important. But just in addition to what Sandra said, I would just say that something that I have found interesting in terms of, I don't know if it's a trend, but the interns that we have here, even this summer, I have 4 in HR, and the level of energy and inquisitiveness and the I guess I'll call it a fearlessness of diving in to something they have no experience with, basic educational knowledge of, but the willingness to just dive in and figure it out and then work together, whether it's between them and or my more seasoned staff who's mentoring them, has been fascinating. And just the excitement and energy around it has been refreshing, and especially during both last summer and this summer with the pandemic. It was just like, let's go. They're like, let's go. We're going to do this. So I've really appreciated that. I think, on the digital comment, I think that one of the interesting things that we coach students on is pace, because they're so, and I hate to generalize, right? But most of us are just so used to that quick hit now, right? Like a quick text or a quick solution or a quick answer. Trying to give them some of that exposure, as the interns anyway, of you kind of have to temper your pace and expectations sometimes, because in a corporate environment, and especially in some insurance environments, it's not the quick. You don't get a solution just quick. You have to think through it. There's downstream impacts. There's not that immediate, that immediate gratification. And so that on the other side is something that, I've kind of seen a trend with is, wow, that took a long time. And I'm like, well, that was only a week. So, there are some things where, I've been working on a project for 2 years. How would you feel about that? And just kind of getting them exposed to that, I think would be the other end of that, the digital and the pace trend of kind of, setting those proper expectations so that they're not disappointed or end up leaving because they think it's just your company that might have to make those types of longer term decisions. So, and again, everything Sandra said, I would absolutely agree with. The emotional intelligence, the critical thinking, super important.
It's funny to think that this new generation that's coming out of college has never had to wait to get on the internet and hear that dial tone, the internet connecting that. And it would make sense that pace is a little different for the newer generation. So on that theme, you've done all the work to recruit. How does developing, retaining young talent, how is that looking? Are there some types of training or programs that companies might want to consider to maintain and build the talent and leadership capabilities and get them used to things taking longer than instantaneous at your different organizations? And I guess I'll start, Stephanie, since we're still on you, I'll hand it to you first.
Sure. That's a great question. And I think it's, one of the puzzles that many are trying to solve, especially as you have the older generations in larger volumes retiring during this pocket that we're in, and making sure that you have the talent bench ready to step up in a fairly quick and in a volume, in the same volume is, it's an interesting challenge. But I would say that, kind of backing up a little bit, when you're thinking about getting young talent interested in your company and into your organization, you have to start pretty early. I think about our company, Blue Cross, right? So anybody who doesn't know much about Blue Cross thinks, oh, well, yeah, my parents have your insurance, and when I go to the doctors, we show the card and we go to the doctors and pay a copay, if they even know that. And that's it. And it's way more than that, right? And so if you can start to influence, even in the middle school or early on, about like exciting things about your company, right? So whether it's technology or anything a corporation would do, HR, marketing, sales, finance, and all of the above, you can start to kind of sprinkle little nuggets of, oh, I might want to work there someday. Then you work up into high school and college, et cetera. So once you get them here, I think it's critically important that you have a formalized program, one, to make sure they have a meaningful experience as students in your organization. If you're just having them file papers or scan or open mail, hugely missed opportunity there. If you can create a program where they are actually learning tangible skills, then I would highly recommend that. And the other piece on the conversion side is, so you have the students, you've invested the time, now what? Well, there's some analysis that has to go into that, because you have to know where your needs are in the business. You have to know what kind of job openings, like headcount, right? We all, well, I don't have headcount to convert the students. You kind of plan for that ahead of time of where are my pockets of risk? Where do I need my talent bench? How am I going to get that headcount, that vacancy, so that if I find a stellar student that wants to stay and I want to keep, how do we make sure that once they graduate, we've now offered them a full-time position and starting their career? So you have to kind of have, and again, it's not a perfect science. It's not something that, it's the formula every company can use, but formalizing and using data along the way is very important, because you could otherwise be attracting and trying to retain students that aren't going to fit what you need longer term. So you have to think critically about that and use some data along the way.
Wonderful. Sandra, how about you?
So I think one of the things, the onboarding experience is just really extremely critical. Making sure that you give that employee, that student, a new employee that comes along, a holistic, a very strong onboarding experience where they get to know the products, they get to, maybe feel and touch some simulation activities and all of that, bring in other new people together, and so they bounce questions off each other. So we really take now we're taking I guess a laser focus on making sure that our onboarding experience is absolutely, exceptional, for lack of a better word. And then I think also it's really important to have different activities for, one of the things that we do have, and we've just recently started, is an innovation club. So where their ideas could come, where when they come in with new and fresh ideas, that there's a place that they have, and they actually are able to bring these ideas, put their thoughts together, and bring it back to the leadership team. So really, I think, having programs in place that people are feeling, and obviously also, I want to also say psychological safety, having safe place where they could make mistakes and it's okay, because we have our core values which say that it's okay that you're wrong and you make a mistake. But also, I think just, having programs where people could have ideas, their thoughts being recognized, and then move it forward. So 3 things, I think: the onboarding experience coming in, it's very, very important, very crucial if we want to retain, all right, to keep them engaged, for them to have other new people where they actually have that touch points with, and then innovation, a place where they could actually go and they could have their thoughts and their new ideas. Yes, we've done it like this a whole lot before, but here's some new, fresh blood that's coming in with ideas and fresh ideas to make sure that they're listened to, their ideas can be brought up to leadership, and just really making sure that they understand the business, the product, the knowledge, and all of that good stuff.
Sandra, I definitely agree with you. The onboarding, right, that can make or break, that sets the pace for someone's time at a company. So I think that I agree with you there. And then you mentioned something, touch points. I'm going to kind of piggyback off of that with this next question. Because we talk a lot about mentorship programs here at ITSCOLA and what that might look like. So Sandra, what kind of success have you or your organization had with mentorship programs in terms of developing talent? Do you think that they're more productive when they're organized by the company, or can they also be helpful when they're organized by the community?
So this current organization, we're in the very infancy stage of the mentorship, developing a mentorship program. As a matter of fact, what we found initially, there was a lot of confusion in what is mentorship. Is it the same as coaching? What do I do as a mentor? What is my expectation? What is the expectation of the mentee? So we had to go through a whole, exercise to make sure that people really, to make sure that those who want to mentor others really understand what that means. Now, you asked an interesting question. Maybe it's a good thing to have communities involvement? That hasn't been explored, but I do think that might be my experience in the past with mentorship program, that it's 50-50, hasn't really been very successful. It sort of dies out. Initially, it starts out with a mentee and they have that one-on-one, conversation, but then after a while, I'm looking for career growth, I'm looking to attain, this certain knowledge. After a while, it sort of fizzles out. It hasn't been tracked very successfully. We don't see, our return on our investment. Did this person get into a succession? Did they move up in the organization? So my experience has not been that great with the mentorship program. Now that you asked the question, is it a good idea? Maybe it's a good idea to have the community more so outside. That is very interesting, something that has not been explored, and something I would definitely want to explore more.
It kind of harkens back to what we were talking about earlier about networking, right?
Yeah.
And I am the product of a good mentorship relationship, but it was formed organically, and not everybody has access to mentors.
Right.
So it's a good question. Stephanie, what do you think?
I actually, I have a very similar experience with mentorship programs. So here we tend to leverage them within development programs in and of themselves versus hey, the whole company has a mentorship program that is kind of enterprise-wide. So for example, we have a lead, so it's like a management preparatory, aspiring to be a leader type of development program. And within that program, there's an opportunity for those who get into the program to identify a mentor, and then there's some structure around and some deliverables, right, on how that's going to work. And in other organizations, smaller organizations, there have been more formalized mentorship programs, which were successful. I mean, you would pair up someone with junior level experience or someone who's about ready to kind of cross over that bridge of going from individual contributor to a people management position, which worked well. I mean, measuring it's always difficult. You try to measure it from, okay, well, as a result of that, did somebody then get promotion or grow in some way? You could always go back and look at performance reviews, but that's very heavily data driven. And if you don't have resources for that and it's not automated, that can become a cumbersome process. But for me personally, I think, and you said it, I think for me and the experience that I've had, at least with myself and some of my staff, is, the more organic approach, right? You kind of, you're growing in your career and you just sort of levitate towards certain people in leadership that you're just like, wow, I would like to be a bit more like that person. And having the courage to then kind of develop that relationship, that can be daunting for many, right? Not everyone's an extrovert. No one's ever called me an introvert. I say that a lot. Never been called an introvert. So for folks who might not have that awareness or the courage to approach that type of relationship, I do think from a community and a business perspective, just having some guidelines or some guidance or some encouragement, training around how that could work could be beneficial. Again, it's really hard when formalized, because if it's formalized too much, it feels forced, right? It feels like, well, now I have to do a development plan. I have to track my goals. And it starts to just feel like work rather than it being the relationship and really, that growth aspect. So I've been on both sides, just like Sandra, where it's been successful in some settings, and in others, it just takes a bit more work because it's not a one size fits all dynamic. So
Agree with you both. You talked a little bit about data, right, and tracking data. So pivoting from that, data, we know data is driving how companies are making decisions on skilled workforce. Outside of mentorship programs, what are some of these key metrics that you are tracking in your talent acquisition and retention programs?
So,
we'll stay with Stephanie.
okay, yeah. So I think, well, for me, it's an interesting dynamic, right? Because when you're in a large business, and you have a lot of positions to fill, a lot of times it can feel like recruiting's not fast enough. Recruiting needs to get more people, recruiting. And that's a piece of the puzzle, right? But the other side that even as a talent acquisition leader, I look at turnover. So one of the key data points that I'll look at is turnover, and you can slice and dice that every which way. So it's not just how many people are leaving, it's what job titles are they in, what were the reasons, if we were able to capture why they left, or what were the reasons why they left, what tenure bucket did they sit in? Are we losing new hires? So that ties into the onboarding comments that you both, Sandra, and you made, because if you're losing people within the first few months, there's a breakdown in the recruitment and onboarding process, right? But if you're losing people in the middle or the back end, that could tell a whole different story. We look at it from a performance perspective. So when we lose people, were they top performers? Were they meeting expectations, or were they, the not so regrettable folks who maybe exited the business? So we'll look at that as well. So kind of looking at all those demographics of, what does that churn look like? But you then have to couple that with, and this is the hard part, right? It's from a talent acquisition perspective, but trying to have those projections of, well, what does the business need today and then in the future from that talent side of things? Because, when you have turnover, yes, it's painful, but there can be opportunity, right? Mm-hmm. So if a senior, I'm gonna make it up, a senior developer leaves the organization who's been there for 10 or 15 years, well, what do you have coming? And who's supporting that organization now? So perhaps you can get 2 developers at a more junior level mm-hmm. to replace the senior developer, and you're kind of tying in that whole future bench perspective. But a lot of times we have the reaction of, well, Stephanie left, we need to replace Stephanie. Well, okay, yeah, Stephanie had a lot of work, but that's the most difficult part, I think. But that is another data component that you can use. The other piece is when you're looking at your skills. So again, also difficult for large organizations, but from an organizational health perspective, you look at all sorts of things. Who's approaching maybe some retirement brackets, and what jobs are they in? What skills do they have? What institutional knowledge do they carry with them that you then have to mitigate some of that risk and build training and knowledge share within your processes? Do you have someone in a role that they're the only ones that know how to do it, right? Yep. So you have subject matter experts that not only is it hard to recruit, but maybe they're the only ones in your company that built this thing and know this thing and can do this thing. And so what are you going to do about that? So for me, turnover is a big piece because it can fairly quickly tell a pretty good story about who you're losing and anecdotally why you're losing them, so that you can maybe pivot on your recruitment plans. And when you're meeting with management on making those recommendations on, well, I think you should do this instead, can be very helpful. So those are just a few of the data points I think that that I would use along the way, but that other organizations, if you're not doing it, you could consider trying to capture some of that to make better workforce decisions, especially as you're bringing new folks in.
That makes a lot of sense. Sandra, how about you?
So, from the talent acquisition and everything, first of all, that Stephanie said and more, but talent acquisition and, with some of the metrics are, time to fill, the recruiter, requisition load, the recruiter hires per year, all those other number of employees, referrals, requisition fill rate, all that from the talent acquisition. From the turnover, it's the exit interviews, as Stephanie spoke about, is what what are the trends, who's leaving. She spoke about all that, so I'm not going to go in it. The other thing is though, but from the retention part, as far as metrics are concerned, one of the things that I like to focus on is something, what we do is a stay interview. I like to know why people are staying, those that are here, the stay interviews that I do, because then I find out a lot, why are you staying with this organization, and what are the key things that, so we could do it better. And and not only what makes people leave and how we get them in, but why are people staying? Because I think those metrics, that information is just so it helps with talent acquisition, with our employee value proposition and why you should come work here, because this is what our employees are saying, why they're staying. It really is it's also very eye opening. Like, for example, I'll give you an example. I would, people say, I stay here because, right now the work that I'm doing, I really love the work that I'm doing. I love the product. So it's like, here I have these early adopter that I could go ahead and I could put in the various programs, do different programs where they can actually go and talk to their peers. So I really love the stay interview from a retention, metrics perspective. And then everything else that Stephanie has said.
Yeah. I love that idea of the stay interview. I don't think I've ever had one of those. So that's fascinating. Let's talk a little bit about this year, this interesting past year and a half. We know that the way that companies engage with their employees is probably one of the most impacted pieces of corporate life. What are some of the ways that you as talent professionals have had to adapt to this new world? Stephanie?
Oh, sure. And actually, I'm going to go back to the last question really quick, because I really loved that Sandra brought up these stay interviews, because those can be key to your strategies. And I'm so glad you brought it up. And, it's fairly easy to do. Well, I say easy, assuming you have the data at your fingertips. But if you look at tenure and performance and you have some feedback from management, you can quickly identify who your high performers and engaged workers are, right? And so, I mean, how cool is it to just go, well, why do you like your job? Why do you like the company? What do you like about the environment? And you can tie that right back into talent acquisition, into yourself, right? Like, this is why people stay. This is why they love what they do. And when you talk about the core values and the culture fit from the retention angle, can be extremely helpful. And it's also helpful to management to know, like, what's most engaging to these folks. And am I doing that with all of my employees, right? Do I have that same connection across the board? So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up, because those folks can become not only helpful from that data angle, but also can turn into some of your brand ambassadors, right? So if you're going to a job fair, or you're trying to talk about the company, or have testimonials on your career page about why someone loves working for your company, I mean, they're your people. That's where you go, right? Because they're going to tell the truth. They're going to tell the story. They're going to have passion about it. So, sorry, I wanted to circle back to that, because that was an excellent point about the stay interviews. So if you have the resources to do that, it's a great thing. Engaging my employees or my staff, customers, and all of the above, and talent along the way. It was interesting. I prefer face-to-face. I prefer the engaging body language kind of conversation in terms of just that relationship and networking piece, right? But, COVID really kind of put a wrinkle in that, and we have a pretty, I guess, secure type of environment where, we don't all just walk around with laptops and video cams, right? So it was a lot of phone calls and a lot of trying to solution and make sure everybody was okay. Does everyone have what they need, both personally, right? So having that level of empathy and trying to understand, like, okay, is my staff, are they okay out there? Like, are they healthy? Are they, is there anything we can do? But then also on the work side, do they have the equipment? Do they have what they need to be successful? But I think everyone kind of adopted their own way of how they work with their teams and how we work with talent. So, we use the phone a lot anyway to do candidate screening, so no big change there. Resumes and applications are web-based, So as long as you can get on the internet, no change there. So largely, I don't think, again, speaking for myself and my department, not a whole lot changed aside from us being separated, right? And not having that in-person team interaction. So some of the things that I did was we actually increased our huddles. So I kind of tiered it, right? So my direct reports, we would huddle every morning for 15 minutes. How's everyone doing? How's the staff doing? What do we have going on? But then also department-wide meetings were a lot more intentional. But one of the things that I did was, I kept hearing, well, we wish we could see you. We wish we could see each other. So I thought, well, it might be a little awkward, but I'm going to do YouTube videos. So I did YouTube video messaging that I coordinated through our corporate communication team so that it could be stored in a place where everybody could get to it, and just in terms of communicating and being transparent. So whether it was about updates about our buildings and things happening with COVID, when are we coming back, are we not coming back, but the critical business shifts or communications that they needed to be successful in their jobs. And that, I think, was pretty well received. I think at one point they were just relieved to see a coworker. So whether it was me or someone else, there was like this sigh of relief. You could just see, it was just so much more relaxed and people weren't as on edge. And so I think, we will continue to do that. So we'll have people on site. We're starting to come back. But even when we're not, I think we've just learned a new way to work with each other. Was it the best thing ever? No, not for me. I missed people terribly. Just, to be transparent, I really, there was a point where I was even having a hard time of, boy, I need a change of scenery and I need human interaction. This is really tough. But then learning the different dynamics with your staff, and then even the way talent wants to interact with you has been a good learning experience. And I think we did a pretty great job here as an organization in terms of making that shift from a true brick and mortar, everybody's on site, to within 3 weeks, okay, deploy off site and we'll figure it out, right? And like, let's all go be safe and we'll figure it out. So I think the leadership messaging was, something different. We've had leadership town halls where the leadership teams were all being videoed so that the staff could see us and have that interaction. So that was, that's just, we just had to adapt is really all it comes down to, is you have to be resilient and you have to adapt. So we did. That's what we did.
That is the key to this past year, adoption, right?
Right.
Sandra, what about you?
So like Stephanie, I am, I like to mingle with the people and face to face. So I had to think about, as she was speaking, I was thinking to myself, what did I actually do? And I think I had to think about, was I a virtual champion? Did I have the right mindset and the right skill set for leading sort of this virtual world, into this virtual world? Was I a virtual resistor? Was I resisting this whole thing? Or was, I was a virtual striver. I was trying to strive to make sure that I could live up into this virtual world. And I did come to the conclusion that, yes, Sandra, I am a virtual champion, because you, just like I know I like to feel and touch, so I'm always on camera. Right, with the people that I support, I'm always on camera, even if they're not. They get used to now that, okay, I'm gonna turn on my camera because Sandra always has her camera on. So I had to, this is how I connect, right? I said, it's okay, you don't have to. But then I started seeing more and more people as they speak to me. They come on camera, and then I had to sort of think about how I was going to help the team. So how can I help the employees self-direct, just how I did, if they're not where I am? And how can I address barriers to productivity in this virtual world and across work location? And how can I help the team sort of establish rituals and norms for this, probably going into a hybrid future or whatever? And then what technology could I leverage to sort of enhance the collaboration? So, some of the, things that we use is Yammer, that technology where we do sort of like a Facebook social connecting sort of world, again, it's just doing some Teams activity virtually to make sure that we are, connecting social activities that we're connecting. So yeah, so I had to first think about where I was in this whole new world of things, and was I the champion that I should be. And then after I figured that out, that yeah, Sandra, this is how you could continue to be, connecting with the people and making sure that they see who you are. Then I had to go through my, my questionnaires on how I'm going to help others to succeed. So yeah, that's how I sort of adapt.
That's interesting. Virtual champion, striver.
And resistor.
Right. And I'm from a company that has been remote, and I've been remote for many years. But the most recent company that I had, they had a cameras on policy. Of course, they wouldn't force you to, but everyone always had cameras on, and it does make such a big difference if you're an introvert versus an extrovert. I'm an extrovert, like the both of you.
I don't know if I'm an extrovert. I strive to be an extrovert. People always think that I'm an extrovert, but truly my Myers-Briggs said I'm actually very much an introvert. But so I pretend I'm a good pretender.
The fake it till you make it, right?
There you go.
All right. I'm going to jump into some questions. I've gotten one that's come in chat right now from Sarita. And that is, and this was actually a question that was on my list, so I'm glad she's asked it. What is your plan now that COVID has happened? What's the plan about bringing people back into the office? This is probably a hot topic, but are there going to be vaccine mandates? Are there how's employees that aren't vaccinated going to be managed? Are we going to be back with 100% capacity or follow a hybrid model? That sort of thoughts. Can you guys both share what you can know? Because I know everything's moving and in flight. About what your different organizations are thinking. And maybe Sandra, you want to lead the way?
So I do think, it's going to probably more than likely be no, I don't know. I don't know for sure, but a hybrid model that a lot of organizations are going to go into, that maybe 2 or 3 days in the office. But again, we're still dealing with this COVID, right? And so you never know what things are going to look like. So I think it's going to be where there's going to be some type of connectivity back in the office and still give people the opportunity to have, still be remote. I know that, I've read a lot of things that says that a lot of people do not want to go back in the office, they'd rather, remain remote. But we also know that, the work-life balance have really struggled even more so in a remote world, a full remote world where you sort of the lines are blurred, am I working, 50 hours a day? No, I'm just kidding. So, I do think that, for the most part, it's going to be more of a hybrid, 2 to 3 days in the office, and then the rest. But here's one of the questions, and I know you haven't gotten to it, but one of the questions is, well, what are other companies going to do to actually attract talent? And one of the things they're going to do is, they're saying we're fully remote, because they're hearing the noise in the system, and the noise is saying, people want to stay remote. So, how is that going to shift organization who's thinking hybrid? I don't.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a challenging one. How about you, Stephanie?
Yeah, I think, it's an interesting topic for me because, not even 5-6 years ago, we had a bunch of very large companies say, we're going remote and we're going to pay people well. And then guess what? 2.5 years later, they're like, uh-oh, yeah, okay, productivity's down. We're not doing things. And, the Bank of America and, Yahoo and those others, and they brought people back. And I think it'll take some time for all of this to shake out. I think in some instances, organizations are fairly reactive, right? So you want to be sensitive to what people want, but then you also have to be sensitive to what your business needs. And in the insurance industry, there's a lot of security measures, right? So when you're thinking about claims processing, or even just in HR, think about background checks. right? So, what do people have the right home settings to work from home? Do they have the right secure equipment, the secure connections? There's a lot that goes into it. And so while on the surface, it feels like, some people, some candidates potentially might be like, well, I don't want to work for a company that's not innovative or open-minded because they're not going to let me work remote. There's a lot behind the scenes that has to be considered. And so, for us, I can share, I think, that we've just taken a pretty conservative approach. We weren't the trailblazer of, everybody went home on the first day because we were already deployed at home anyway, and then we definitely weren't the first ones to come back when things started to settle down. I think, we have some really smart doctors working here, and leadership is tremendous, and I think there's just been a very intentional, conservative approach to what's the best thing for our employees and what's the best thing for the business, so that combination. Probably for some, they're grateful for that because they're not quite ready to maybe transition back. Others are chomping at the bit to come back, and we're maybe not going fast enough. And so you can't please everyone, right,
Yeah.
as an organization. But I think in some instances, you'll probably find that certain jobs or certain types of jobs are very easily remote workable, if I could just say it that way, where other jobs just are not. And again, you still have to find the balance of, okay, so who do we deploy at home and who do we not, who's coming back? So there's that piece. And then, the vaccination piece, I think, that you brought up, it's there are recommendations and guidelines that have to be considered, and you have to also consider your employee base. And again, you can't please everyone. We know that during this whole thing, there are folks over here, and there are folks over here, and then you've got some folks in the middle. And, again, just trying to take the safest approach without undervaluing, a certain pocket of your employee base's values it's tricky. This whole thing is a tricky thing. But I've only heard of a couple outside of Blue Cross. I've only heard of a couple of organizations who have attempted to mandate vaccinations. And there's a lot of legal stuff behind that I'm not going to pretend to be a lawyer. So that's my disclaimer. This is not legal advice, but there's a lot behind that, and it's very dependent on what you do for a job. Like some of the medical fields have a little more leeway. So it's been an interesting endeavor, and I'm not even really sure that my answer provided any real value other than, I think, as our organization, it's just taken a very good and conservative approach to, before we make decisions that impact us as a business and also all the employees, like what are all the moving pieces and parts that we have to consider, and what's the safest thing for everyone. So hopefully that's what everybody else is doing too. But I know every company has their own approach, but that's typically what we've taken.
For the past year and a half, I've been doing sales demos to insurance companies, and I've seen it all. Fully remote and some in the middle of the pandemic, unmasked in a conference room together because that's where they were comfortable. So that's a tough one. And I agree with you. Insurance is a risk-averse community, right? that's right. Kind of the business that we're in. So I've got another question that's come in from Phil, and he wants to know, and this is back on the stay interviews subject, if those are conducted live or if they're blinded interviews or surveys so that the respondents are comfortable providing honest feedback while they're still employed. I don't know, Sandra, if you want to take that since you're the one who initially brought it up, and maybe Stephanie can jump in.
Sure. So they are conducted in little small focus group roundtables. What we have found out that when we do roundtables with just from different employees from different groups and different organizations, we get it is very, very robust. They are able to exhale. They're not we haven't experienced yet that they're afraid of or holding back. They're really talking it and talk to us, and it's very, very lively and very active. So we do random roundtables where we get employees from different organizations, and we do 6 or 7 of those little focus group type thing, and we have very you know, we have questions that we have up on the screen, and we're able to actually type, which, you know, everyone is seeing what's being said, and then they'll add to it. So it works really well. So yeah, it is live. It is not, you know, send out a survey and ask why you're staying here. We do that with all other things, but with the stay interview, we want to hear it, we want to feel it, we want to further probe and ask questions. So that's why we do it that way.
Yeah. When I was in the IS division here, as a org development consultant, we did them live. So we would do them one-on-one if we were seemingly losing a key person. So there were certain parameters around which we might engage you know, well, the exit interview piece, but then also on the risk side. So the high potentials, the high performers, and then those that might have fallen in the subject matter expert, you know, the only person that knew that skill type of situation. We would do them live. We would also have, just like with Sandra, you know, some focus group conversations, small group, right? So it's more intimate, but it's interesting to watch unfold, because as soon as someone gets a little comfortable, other people start to get a little more comfortable, and it's all about the environment that you present that conversation in. If you come in like, I'm HR and I need to collect data, they're like, what is HR going to do with this data? So, you know, it has to be a comfortable environment. I've not been, and in the other positions that I've done stay interviews, we've never, trying to think, we never used the survey approach for those. It was always a very more intimate one-on-one or that small focus group environment as well.
Makes a lot of sense. I guess, Ryan, I think we'll open it up and see if there are other questions that haven't come in through chat. That's the sum of what I've seen so far.
Yeah, I sent out an open request. So if anybody's got a question they want to put in real quick, feel free to let us know. Otherwise, I haven't gotten any other responses on my side. So we're good. I think we will start moving to close out.
Yeah.
If something comes up real quick here while I do some of the outro remarks, then I will let y'all know. But otherwise, first and foremost, thank you, Pelham, and our panelists this afternoon. Pelham's been a member of our talent group here at ITSCOLA, and you have done a phenomenal job of moderating. And thank you, Sandra and Stephanie. I've been able to experience how busy these ladies are firsthand over the past few weeks. They have a lot of work to do, and you know, definitely doing the Lord's work out there, trying to attract and retain those top people. So on behalf of ITSCOLA, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy days to join us and talk about this, because it's a subject that we hear a lot about from all the individual companies here in the Columbia area. We know how critical it is to everybody else. So we got a question about some contact information. I think we'll see if we can follow up and get you some of that information as well. On to something a little more fun that we have been doing at the end of these. So keeping around the theme of a lunch and learn session, since we could not have lunch in person with people, what the talent committee, they decided we wanted to do as something as a cool reward for some of our people who join us was to do a raffle for gift cards. So some of our lucky people can go and enjoy a lunch on us somewhere. So we're gonna give out 2 gift cards, and I'm gonna use my chat box over here, but I'm gonna ask our panelists. Let's see, I've got 26 people participating. I'm gonna ask both of our panelists if you can please provide me a number between 1 and 26, and I'll make some selections based on who you randomly choose.
I'll give you 7.
I was going to go with 16.
So I've got Carrie Turner, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Carrie Turner and Kyle Caldwell are our lucky winners today.
Cool.
All right, and I've got information and emails from everybody. So Carrie and Kyle, I will follow up with both of you after the fact and make sure that we get y'all some gift cards. Thanks for participating as well. Next up, this was kind of a virtual event that ITSCOLA was put together just to kind of keep people informed and up to date on industry trends and what's going on. But I am proud to announce that we are currently working on a live in-person event coming up in the next few months, hopefully in early September. We have not finalized the details for that, but we would love and welcome the opportunity to get to know and meet some of you in person as well. So please stay tuned. You can follow us on the website, itscola.com. We've also got our social media channels on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook, and we will be keeping up-to-date information on that. And once we have those details confirmed, we will send those out, and we look forward to seeing everybody soon. But other than that, thanks again, everybody, for joining us. Huge thanks again to Sandra and Stephanie, and we hope everybody enjoys the rest of your day. It's going to be a hot one in Columbia, so all of y'all stay cool and stay hydrated. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everybody.
thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.